Hello, and welcome to Timing is Everything, a program of Care Dimensions. My name is Mary Crowe, the Director of Professional and Community Education at Care Dimensions. And today I'm thrilled to have back Robert Hagopian, known as Bob to us, and he is one of our amazing chaplains. And today we're going to talk about religion versus spirituality. When people have a life-limiting or a end-of-life issues and things like that, Bob. Thank you so much for being back on the show.
Well, thank you for having me back.
Well,
and,
you know,
it's
we
great to
love
talk.
having you here, Bob.
you.
I could talk to you for weeks on end, I have to tell you. So, you know, before we get into our topic today, Bob, just remind the audience a bit about yourself and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I've been a minister now for 22 years. I'm a congregational ordained in the United Church of Christ. I served a parish for 19 years. But I've worked in hospice for a little over 8 years. It's coming up on 5 years, March 1st, 2020, with Care Dimensions.
Nice.
And I love it. I love the work I'm doing. To me, it's the ultimate form of ministry.
And we're the lucky ones, Bob.
Well, thank you.
That's for sure. So, you know, it's, this is such an important topic. You know, this is, these studies show that people who are facing life-threatening illness, that the spiritual needs aren't being addressed really by healthcare professionals. And that's a shame, right? So with palliative care, and we know this, right, from a palliative care perspective, we talk about the whole person concept and about a whole person care. And if we're really performing whole person care, we can't leave the spiritual needs out.
No, we can't. You're absolutely right about that. And I have found that hospitals, a lot of the medical organizations do understand that, and especially hospitals will have chaplains on service, and they will try to accommodate all different faiths, all different denominations. And we at Care Dimensions do the same thing, both in our palliative care and our hospice care. It's the interdisciplinary team. Whoever created that is genius, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because we're looking at the individual, the mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
And what I have found in the 8 years I've been in this field, as I said, and especially at Care Dimensions, all of that team, every member of that team is valued.
Absolutely.
And it's not that, one is more important than the other or less important. We're all a team, and we work together that way.
Yeah.
Because we are dealing with the whole person.
We are, and if we're not, we're missing the boat.
Right.
We are doing them a terrible disservice, and we want to make sure that the whole person's needs are addressed.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit, before we get into some of the other stuff, just talk a little bit about the role of the chaplain for people with a serious illness or a life-limiting illness.
Sure. When our patients are admitted, they're asked, about their religion, about their faith, and we, as part of the team, will go in to talk more about that with them. So we may get some information. The person may be Protestant or Catholic or Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist. Chaplains are equipped to minister to all faiths. We really are interfaith. And I come from that background, and my denomination is very interfaith. So this was a really easy fit for me. I'm a Christian. I know that Jesus is the guy for me, but I know he's not the guy for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't stay up at night worrying about that.
Yeah.
We were all children of the same Creator, and I think that's something that that we all understand. I've said this before, not every clergy person can be a chaplain, because if you can't accept other people for who they are and what they believe, if you're judgmental, you can't do this work.
Right.
You're going to hurt yourself, and you're going to hurt the people you're trying to serve.
Absolutely.
So it has to be about respect and about tailoring our work and our what we bring to bear to the person's needs, not our needs.
Right.
It's not about us. It's about them. It's about their families.
Yeah.
And we honor their traditions.
Absolutely. I want to talk, Bob, about, we hear the terms spirituality and religion, and they're often used interchangeably, when in fact they're two very distinctive things.
Right.
So can you talk more about that?
Certainly.
Thanks.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right about they are used interchangeably, and they are confused with each other. spirituality is a personal faith. It's a person's perspective on what is spirit. What do they do with their lives? Do they meditate? Do they pray? Do they take time away in a quiet place? Do they go to the ocean? Do they listen to certain music? Maybe read certain poetry or prose? It's nurturing their soul. Religion is, and theology, which is part of religion, is the human perspective on the divine and on what we can't explain in this physical universe. So spirituality is a part of that, but a person's spirituality is not necessarily dependent upon a specific religion. You've heard me say this before. I know over the past 3 decades in our country, when they've done national surveys asking people, are you spiritual or religious? More and more are answering that they're spiritual and not religious. Now, if you're in the church business, that's not necessarily a good thing. But I see it as a very positive thing, because I do believe that down deep, everyone has some concept that they're part of something bigger than just themselves. And that there is something beyond what we see in the three-dimensional universe. So spirituality is, how does a person's soul nurtured? How do they feel a measure of peace? Where do they find that? What practices do they do? What beliefs do they have and maintain that help them get through life and deal with the challenges that we're faced with every day? Religion is structure. It's like a box, and you behave a certain way in that box, and you agree to certain rules and regulations and behavioral norms that go with that religion. And that's why every religion is unique. And within religions, there are different denominations that are also unique. So,
well, I think that's important that people understand that too, because we hear this from a cultural perspective, right? Is that that if a person belongs to a particular culture, this is how they act or practice. It's just not true.
No, you're absolutely right.
So we have to really understanding more about the person. The only way, because we think, oh, this is their culture, is we know all about them. We don't know a thing about them unless we ask.
Amen to that. You're absolutely right about that, and that's the important part. Is asking the individual, what does this mean to you? You may say, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew. What does that mean to you?
Right, exactly.
How do you practice that particular religion? Or what there may be elements of a particular religion that they adhere to, and others that they don't adhere to.
That's right.
So we are tasked to identify their needs and where they're coming from, so that we can best serve them in the unique way that they need to be served, and not going in and trying to change their minds or turn them into, we're not there to judge.
Right.
And I think that's something that's universal in chaplaincy, whether it's in hospice, hospitals, the military, emergency services, it's all the same thing. We do not judge.
And that's really, it's so important. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
It's so important that people understand that, because there are some disenfranchised groups that come to a point with a life-limiting illness and all, and they have things to work out, but sometimes even feel like, will I be accepted? Can I even bring my spiritual or religious feelings forward? Will I be accepted? Will I feel, and not just tolerated, but I always feel tolerance isn't a good enough word for me. It's embraced.
I like that word better. Right.
So I just, so it was just when you were talking, it just kind of rang true for me in terms of that again, it's so important that people understand that there isn't a judgment.
Right.
And there is a worry about that, isn't there?
There certainly is. And a lot of that is cultural. A lot of that comes down from what people have learned from when they were children, seen in movies, television, books, whatever, that certain religions are portrayed a certain way. And we like to bring fresh air into this and say that, no, we're not here to judge you. You are a child of God, uniquely created who you are. And we're here to serve you. We're here to show you love and compassion and kindness. I love the way you put that, embrace, because it this is what we do. We embrace our patients and our families. we're there to help them.
Yeah.
We're there to show them that there are people out here who, they don't know us, but we're dedicated and devoted to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And we want to find out how best we can serve
Yeah.
them.
It's an important message and a tricky one to get across, though, because when people are feeling so vulnerable, which they are, right? They feel vulnerable when they're ill,
Right.
or when they're dying. And again, like you said, it could be based on past experiences, other things where maybe there were elements of rejection and other things
Sure.
that having to overcome in sometimes a brief period. And in your work, in your ministry, you're having to really establish a trust.
Yes.
And it really get that across to people in a very short period of time.
You're absolutely right. And I like the word trust, the way you use that, because it's absolutely true. We build trust. And all the different disciplines do this. It's not just chaplains.
Yeah.
You know, I've always said that when you go to a specialist, the chemistry you have with that person, the relationship who they are,
Yeah.
and how they present themselves and the connection you feel is critical to your healing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about the mechanics of it, the technology or whatever. It's about, does that person make you feel better?
Yeah.
Does that person make you feel loved and cherished, important?
Yeah.
That they're giving you the time you need.
Absolutely.
So it is about building trust.
Yeah.
And having them understand we're not here to judge who they are or what they're doing or what they've done with their lives. You know, we don't walk in and say, well, if you didn't smoke 6 packs a day, you wouldn't have cancer. No,
Right,
you know,
right.
that's, they know that.
Right, right.
You know, we don't
Yeah.
need to tell them that, and that's not what we're there for.
Right.
And I think we live in a world now where, thanks to the electronic media, thanks to, I think, a more openness, that we're willing to look at each other
Yeah.
and see the similarities,
Yeah.
see that we all have in common.
Yeah.
Death plays no favorites.
That's right.
It comes to everyone.
Yeah.
And so we're here to help everyone we can deal with that reality.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had people who, actually some of my best patients, believe it or not, have been atheists. Because when they hear that I'm coming, oh, geez, I don't want to, what do I want you for? I don't believe in God. I don't.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I say, you know, if God was presented to me the way God was presented to you, I'd be an atheist too.
Yeah.
And it stops them in their tracks. Because I tell them, that's not the God I serve. That's not the God I love,
Yeah.
the God I know.
Yeah.
The God I love is a God of love. The Bible says God is love, period. You know, what is love? Love is the willingness to give of oneself to others,
Yeah.
and to be there for others, and to go that distance, whatever they need,
Yeah.
to help them.
Yeah.
That's what that's all about.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do as
Yeah.
chaplains, and I think, as I said, all the disciplines in hospice do that.
Absolutely. And despite, like you say, religious beliefs, that doesn't have to factor in here. So it's, again, the need to feel. We all have we're social beings, right? And we have the need to feel connected.
Right.
And that's about, like you said, this love and this connection that people need to feel at a time when they're worried about whether people are going to be with them, if they're going to be abandoned, if they will be embraced, if people can even tolerate the feelings that they're experiencing or the
Exactly.
suffering.
Right.
And I think that's a big word too, Bob, is the suffering component, right?
Absolutely.
And how do we help people through this journey? There's all different types of suffering.
Absolutely. There's physical suffering,
Yeah.
there's psychological suffering, and there's also spiritual suffering. And that's
Yeah.
why, again, the interdisciplinary team is genius.
Yeah.
We're addressing all of those different aspects of a person's life. And by identifying their needs and who they are and what their fears are and
Yeah.
what has been inhibiting them from finding a measure of peace, we keep confidences. That's part of,
Yeah.
as clergy, that's part of our ordination vows. And of course, as nurses and social workers, it's part of their vow, or their, what they have agreed to do in serving in that role. So we're building that trust. We're helping these people to open up to us. We're not judging them. And we might have people who are very, very narrow-minded about life. We have to adjust our care to that perspective. And again, realize we're not there to change them, fix them,
Right.
teach them.
Yeah.
We're there to walk with them.
Yep.
When you walk with somebody, you're by their side.
Right.
You're not in front of them, you're not behind
That's
them.
right.
You're by their side.
Yeah.
And you're experiencing the same part of that journey with them.
That's right.
And helping them to understand they're not alone.
Yeah.
We're with them.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect, and for some people out there, Bob, what you're describing is companioning, and people don't know that term.
Right.
And sometimes I think people do feel like they have to be led or followed or that, but really what people do want is somebody by their side to walk the journey with them.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't always come that way, does it?
No, it doesn't, and that's why I'm so glad that we are here
Yeah.
and doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Is because if a person doesn't have those types of people or that component in their life, we're there to help provide that.
Yeah.
I always tell my patients, remember something, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have people on duty 24 hours a day, every day of every year.
That's right.
And we're willing to talk. And I tell them, I said, don't think you're bothering us, you're not.
Right.
You can call us in the middle of the night.
Yep.
There will be somebody that will answer the phone. There will be somebody that will call you back. There will be
Yep.
somebody who will be willing to listen to you.
That's right.
And spend the time with you that you need.
Yep.
No one is alone.
That's right.
And from a spiritual perspective, I believe the Spirit of God is around us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But for the individual who can't maybe conceive of that, we need to give them a flesh and blood person, and that's us.
Yeah.
That's what we're there to do.
Well, I want to talk too about how religion and spirituality, how, again, they can help people to endure this end-of-life journey, right? Because this can be a tricky thing, as we talked about, because people have gone through so many different things in their lives and all of that. And you talked about the being alone, and people aren't alone, but there are people that could be in the crowd of 1 million people and still feel alone.
Absolutely.
Just because of life's experiences and just what's within them.
Yeah.
So how can religion and spirituality help along the way in terms of this? How can it impact us in any way, whether it be positive or negative?
That's a good question, and I would have to say, if the person wants to embrace a certain belief, a certain theology, a certain perspective, and if it works for them, that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. If it helps bring them a measure of peace and understanding, theology in general is humans trying to understand the divine. Mm-hmm. And as human beings, we like to build boxes and put things in boxes and all that. That's just who we are. But identifying the person's spirituality, identifying what it is maybe about the practice of their religion that they love, that's an important, I'm going to say tool, but that's an important blessing to that individual. Now, I've had folks who, they haven't been to church in a long time, let's say, but they love the sacred music. So I'll bring in recordings of those sacred music that is specific to their denomination or their religion. And if it helps bring them some peace, I'm doing my job.
Right.
We have incredible music therapists that do this kind of work all the time. Yeah. Not only with spiritual music, but with all types of music that the person may love.
Yeah.
And it touches a part of them that needs to be healed. Yeah. It needs to be cared for, and so we're here to do that, to try to do that for them. If certain readings mean something to them, I'll read it. Yeah. If certain prayers mean something to them, I'll pray in their tradition. Yeah, sure. All the chaplains will do that. Yeah. That's what we're all here to do. Yeah. And it's whatever we can do to help that person find strength. Yep. And in the midst of what they're dealing with, and in the fear that is encompassing all that, if we can bring them some calm, some clarity, and help them to understand that they are valued and that they have value, no matter what they've done in their life. Right. And, we listen to that too. We help them process that. Sure. We don't judge them. Yep. And if they need to get it out, they need to get it out, and that's good.
And people do sometimes need to work it out, don't they? And,
absolutely.
And to really process what's gone on. And,
right.
You're bringing up so many different, like the sense and purpose and so many words. And again, sometimes people do have regret and all kinds of things that they need to work out, don't they? Right. So that there isn't spiritual distress before, So and that's what you're describing in some of these ways, the spiritual distress that people can experience, you know. Can you talk a little bit
Sure.
more about that, and maybe even give some examples, Bob?
Sure. Again, getting back to a person's feeling of guilt,
Yeah.
if they feel that they have perhaps hurt other people, or that they have not lived up to their faith or their religion,
Yeah.
or their beliefs or their family, and they are in distress. What's going to happen? You know, I didn't do this right. How do I fix this? How do I make it right before
Yeah.
I leave here?
Yeah.
And we help them figure out ways that they can do that if possible.
Yeah.
We help to bring families together if possible. And that's not just the chaplains do this, the social workers do this. And if we can identify where their needs are for healing, and if we can't do it, or if the members of the family or the members of their particular church or religion don't want to come together with this individual and find middle ground, well, we help them understand that reality.
Right. Right.
And what I always say to them is, what can't not be solved or resolved here, in my personal opinion, in my personal faith, I believe it all will be resolved on the other side. That we are spirit, we are energy, and when we die, our body dies, our spirit goes on. And on the other side is where we will find a measure of peace too. I think that's how I see God. My personal theology is how I see God. God is a healer, God is love.
Yeah.
And God is helping us to help each other,
Yeah.
to find that measure of peace and to be able to get through this life and realize, you know what, yeah, we're human, we've made a lot of mistakes. We've hurt ourselves, we've hurt some people,
Yeah.
but
well,
we're gonna get through.
Yeah, you know, we talked about this. You and I have talked about this topic of forgiveness. You know, you're talking about forgiveness, and I got to tell you, and these are things that do come up, right?
Right.
About
Oh,
these things that
absolutely.
we work out, and you know, it's hard enough to obtain forgiveness from others, but it's even harder to get it from ourselves.
Absolutely right.
And how does that impact the spiritual journey with the end of life?
Right, and that's something that we try to identify. What do they need forgiveness? Are they angry with themselves about something they've done?
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about this. Let's
Yeah.
tell me about this. How does this make you feel? What do you feel you've done right or done wrong?
Yeah.
And to get to a point where they can understand, we're all human.
Right.
We're not perfect. We're all
Yeah.
going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
We're all going to do things wrong, sometimes unintentional, sometimes intentional. We're all sinners, to put it in a religious perspective. But there's always hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope that you can learn from the mistakes you've made
Yep.
and grow
Yeah.
from those mistakes. And if you need to reach out and try to seek forgiveness from another person, or look in the mirror and seek it from yourself, we're there to try to help them do that in the
Yeah.
unique way that we hope they can. You know.
Yeah.
And as I said, I always tell people, there's always hope.
Yeah.
You never give up.
Yeah.
And even if you can't resolve it on this side, you will on the other.
Yeah. And you know, and I've seen it so many times, Bob, that you know, when they feel like they have a life-limiting illness or they're at end of life, that that everything kind of comes to a screeching halt. But there's so much opportunity for growth and healing at
Yes.
this stage of life.
Right.
And so I think helping people to open their hearts and their minds to that there's a lot to do. And there is
Absolutely.
a wonderful opportunity here
Right.
for tremendous growth and healing.
Absolutely right. And I think, again, that's the genius of the interdisciplinary team,
Yeah.
is that we're bringing all these different aspects to bear. The psychosocial, dealing with a lot of that, the spiritual, dealing with a lot of that, the medical, helping them to feel better, to be in a better place so that they can
Right.
engage these different things.
Exactly.
You know, it's all part of the same thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
If we don't help with pain and symptom control,
Right.
how do you work on these very precious issues?
You can't, because
Right.
sometimes,
They're all interrelated.
you know, I've always said this, bad behavior comes out of pain. Whether it's physical pain or emotional pain or spiritual pain,
Yeah.
it's pain.
Yes.
And if we can address that pain,
Yep.
and that's something that we are dedicated to do in
Yeah.
hospice and
Yeah.
palliative care, is to mitigate pain.
Yeah.
And if we can mitigate the pain in all its different forms,
Yeah.
we can help that person to
Yeah.
truly heal
Yep.
and to be able to face their death with strength and confidence and knowing that, you know what, I did the best I could, and
Right.
I've got people around me that care and they're trying to help me out.
Yeah. Well, and if people want to be in touch, there's opportunity for, if people that are watching the show today, if they have questions, they can always call and ask for spiritual
Right, any of the
support.
spiritual
Yeah.
care providers
Yeah.
that we have.
And we'll have Wendy bring up, they'll bring up a screen right now. There you go. So if people have questions, they can call the number that's up on the screen, or send an email, certainly, and we can address that.
Absolutely.
So, I know that I always cringe when we have to come to a close, because Bob, I could just talk to you forever, and we will again. So,
Thank you.
But I know we have to wrap up shortly. So, just if you can give one last gem before we do have to wrap up today.
Sure.
If there's one thing that you just want to share with the audience that we haven't been able to say, or even that you just want to emphasize, what would it be?
Well, I would say, and this is not just strictly for chaplains, but it's the entire team. When we can help a person to come to the moment of their death, help their families who are walking with them to that moment, if we can help them find that measure of peace and show them value, show that they are valued, and show them kindness and compassion, it makes a difference. I think I hear this from all my colleagues and again, in all the different disciplines, is that they say, you made a difference for us. You helped us get through this very, very difficult time, and we know we couldn't have got through it if it wasn't for you. That means everything.
Yeah.
And I know it's not a specific example, but it is. I think that is what our goal is.
Yeah. Well, it's what brings you coming back each day, right?
Amen.
Knowing that you made a difference.
Right.
Bob, thank you so much for being on the show
You're
today. I
welcome.
can't
Thank
thank you enough. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to Timing is Everything, and we look forward to your looking in for our next show.
Care Dimensions, formerly Hospice of the North Shore in Greater Boston, is different in that we do more than just hospice.
It's just incredible, the services they provide when people need it the most.
So being able to offer more individualized care helps people feel more cared for.
Because it's about the patient's quality of life.
I don't think there's any place else in the Boston area like Care Dimensions.
At Care Dimensions, we'll take care of your family like you're a part of ours. Visit us at caredimensions.org.